The most surprising thing about Caitlin Clark's rise wasn't how fast she became a superstar, it was how slowly Nike responded. A company famous for spotting greatness before anyone else handed her one of the richest contracts in women's basketball history. Then, just as her popularity exploded, the momentum disappeared. No signature shoe, no major launch, no clear explanation. Meanwhile, sold-out arenas, record audiences, and rival brands kept proving her value. How could a company that turns athletes into global icons hesitate when the opportunity was right in front of it? What was happening behind the scenes as criticism grew? So what really happened, and what does the evidence reveal? Let's find out. The $28 million question. Before Caitlin Clark played a single WNBA minute, Nike had already decided she was worth building around. In October of 2022, the company signed her to a name, image, and likeness agreement. A deal struck while she was still suiting up for the University of Iowa. Still a junior, still months away from the tournament run that would turn her into a household name. Nike's bet looked obvious in hindsight. Nearly 10 million people watched her play in a national championship game that spring. Television ratings climbed every time she stepped onto the court, and ticket prices for her college games began rivaling professional events. For a company built on identifying stars before the rest of the world catches up, Clark should have been the easiest signature in a decade. Then came the draft. In April of 2024, the Indiana Fever selected Clark with the first overall pick.
With the first pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, the Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark.
And Nike moved to formalize the relationship. An 8-year contract worth $28 million, one of the richest deals in the history of women's basketball.
Clark will soon be signing an 8-year, $28 million contract with Nike.
The number alone signaled intent. This was not a company hedging its bets. This was a company declaring, in writing, that it believed Clark would define a generation of the sport. So why did the declaration stop there? Here is where the story turns strange. A signature shoe deal of this size, for an athlete with this much pre-existing demand, should have triggered an entire marketing machine. Sketches, prototypes, a release date locked in before the contract's ink had even dried. Instead, what followed was largely silence. Clark played her rookie season in Nike's existing Kobe models. She received a personal logo, a pair of interlocking letters built from her initials, but the shoe itself remained theoretical. Fans wanted to know one thing: when does she get her own signature line? Nike, for reasons it has never fully explained in public, did not answer. Compare this to how the company has handled its biggest stars in the past, and the silence becomes harder to justify. Nike does not typically wait when it senses a generational opportunity. It moves fast, locks in the product, and lets the athlete's rise carry the shoe straight to the top of the market. With Clark, that instinct seemed to vanish entirely. Was the company simply being cautious, or had it lost confidence in its own playbook? Whatever the answer, the gap between the size of the contract and the size of the company's actual output became impossible to ignore. $28 million bought a logo, a handful of branded accessories, and a promise. The shoe itself would take years longer to arrive. By the time Clark entered her second professional season, the questions had shifted. It was no longer about whether Nike would eventually release a signature shoe. That much seemed certain.
One of the marks of being a true superstar is getting your own signature shoe, and Caitlin Clark now has hers, unveiling the Caitlin 1 collection.
The real question was, why a company with this much capital, this much consumer data, and this much institutional experience marketing athletes was sitting on its most obvious asset? Every month that passed without an announcement added to a growing sense that something inside Nike's decision-making process had stalled. And the more her profile climbed, the louder that question became, both inside the industry and out. It is worth pausing on just how unusual this is for a company like Nike. This is a brand that has spent 5 decades perfecting the exact formula for turning athletic stardom into shelf space. It does not typically need years to decide whether a star is worth a shoe. It decides in months, sometimes in weeks, because waiting, means handing the moment to somebody else. With Clark, the company that wrote the modern playbook for this kind of decision appeared to be reading from a far slower script, and almost nobody outside the building seemed to know why. Part of what made the silence so jarring is how little it matched the rest of Clark's commercial story. Every other corner of her business moved at the speed her popularity demanded. Television deals expanded around her games. Arenas adjusted ticket pricing specifically for the nights she played. Her jersey consistently ranked among the league's best sellers from her very first month as a professional. If every measurable signal pointed toward urgency, what exactly was Nike waiting to see? The silence that became a story. 2025 should have been the year everything clicked into place. Instead, it became the year the delay turned from a curiosity into a genuine concern. Clark's first professional season had already proven her commercial pull beyond any reasonable doubt. Sold-out arenas on the road, record television audiences, jerseys and tickets moving faster than anything the league had seen in years. By any normal corporate logic, this was the moment to accelerate, not slow down. Yet Nike's signature shoe remained nowhere in sight. Then injuries complicated the picture further. Clark missed a significant stretch of the season, and with her sidelined, some of the offline momentum that had been building around her cooled. For a company that had already been moving cautiously, the injury gave Nike another excuse to wait. Should a brand pause a major launch because its athlete is recovering, or does that hesitation simply compound a delay that was already years in the making? Nike chose to wait. Industry observers chose to notice. Reporting from inside the company around this period painted a picture of an organization that had, in the words of people close to the situation, grown complacent. This was not framed as a single bad decision, but as a broader pattern, a company so accustomed to dominating its categories that it had stopped treating new opportunities with urgency. Clark's shoe was not an isolated case of slow-walking one athlete. It was a symptom of something larger happening across the business. What makes the timing particularly hard to defend is the contrast with Nike's own history. This is a company that built its entire signature shoe model on speed. When it identifies a generational athlete, the standard playbook calls for moving quickly enough to capture the cultural moment before it passes. Clark's moment did not pass quietly. It built for 2 full seasons, in plain view, while the company that had locked her into an 8-year contract did nothing visible about it. By the middle of 2026, the silence had become its own story. Sneaker journalists who track release calendars for a living had nothing concrete to report. Fans speculating online had only rumors and unofficial product leaks to go on. And competitors, companies with far smaller marketing budgets than Nike's, had already moved in to fill the gap Nike left open. The longer Nike said nothing, the more it looked like a company that had simply misjudged how long a market window stays open. Years had now passed since the original deal. 2 full competitive seasons had been played, and still, there was no shoe. What finally broke the silence was not a sudden change of heart inside Nike's marketing department. It was pressure, public, mounting, and increasingly difficult to ignore. Sneaker executives were beginning to speak openly about the situation. Fans were turning frustration into headlines. And somewhere inside Nike's Oregon headquarters, the cost of continued silence had apparently begun to outweigh the cost of finally committing to a launch date. There is a quieter detail buried in all of this that deserves attention. When Clark finally began teasing the shoe publicly, she did it through small personal gestures. Friendship bracelets spelling out a release date, a quiet Instagram handle change. Hints dropped in interviews rather than a coordinated campaign. For an athlete of her stature, that is an oddly informal way to announce one of the biggest product launches in recent WNBA history. Was that Clark's own personal style coming through, or a sign that even in the final stretch, Nike's own marketing machine was still moving slower than the moment demanded? There is also a financial backdrop that makes the delay sting more than it otherwise would. Nike entered this period dealing with a falling stock price and mounting pressure from investors questioning its broader direction. A signature shoe built around one of the most talked about athletes in sports is precisely the kind of low-risk, high-visibility product a struggling company should want on shelves as quickly as possible. Instead, the company sat on a ready-made answer to its own financial questions for years longer than made any sense. Everyone else saw the opportunity. While Nike sat on its signature shoe, the rest of the sports marketing world did not wait around. Wilson Sporting Goods moved quickly to put Clark-branded basketballs on shelves, and the results were striking enough that the company's own head of marketing described it as the brand's most successful basketball launch since Michael Jordan. Think about that comparison for a moment.
Nike Air Jordan, the most successful basketball shoe in history, turns 40 this year.
A basketball company built an entire marketing case study around Clark's name, while the shoe company that actually employed her as an athlete had nothing on shelves at all. Gatorade moved fast too, rolling out branded bottles built around her image. Panini America signed her for trading cards and memorabilia, tapping into a collector's market that was already hungry for anything bearing her name. Stanley, the drinkware company, built an entire product line around her popularity. None of these companies had the decades of athlete marketing infrastructure that Nike has spent building. None of them had anywhere close to Nike's budget, and yet all of them found a way to get a Clark-branded product into consumers' hands faster than Nike managed to get her own signature shoe off the drawing board. Then there is Angel Reese, whose situation makes Nike's hesitation even harder to rationalize. Reese signed with Reebok instead of waiting on a slower-moving giant, and in doing so became the first NBA player to land a signature shoe deal with that brand since the late 1990s. A company that had been almost entirely absent from women's basketball, saw an opportunity, moved on it, and got there before Nike finished deliberating on an athlete it had already locked into an 8-year contract. Why does a brand with a fraction of Nike's resources understand urgency better than Nike itself did? The pattern across all of these examples is the same. Every other partner attached to Clark's name treated her popularity as a window that needed to be captured immediately. Nike, somehow, treated it as a problem that could be solved later. The irony is hard to miss. The same company that pioneered the modern athlete shoe partnership, the company whose entire business model depends on recognizing stars before anyone else does, found itself out-hustled by a basketball manufacturer, a drink company, a trading card brand, and a thermos maker. This is not a story about whether Clark's name carries commercial weight. That question had already been answered, repeatedly, by every brand smart enough to act on it. This is a story about institutional hesitation inside one specific company at exactly the moment its competitors and its own marketing partners were proving just how much value was sitting on the table. Every bottle, every basketball, every sold-out pair of cards represented money Nike could have been making with an actual shoe had it moved with the same urgency as everyone else attached to Clark's brand. Zoom out further, and the broader history of signature shoes in women's basketball makes Nike's hesitation even more conspicuous. Before this recent wave of activity, the last time a black NBA player had a Nike signature shoe of her own was back in 2002, with Sheryl Swoopes. Under Armour did not enter the women's basketball performance category until 2020. New Balance built its first 1BA relationship around a high draft pick in 2024. Every brand in this space had been racing to claim territory in a market that was clearly underserved. Every brand, it seemed, except the one already holding the league's biggest star under contract. Picture the boardroom conversations that must have happened at Wilson, at Gatorade, at Stanley, while Nike's own conversations apparently went nowhere. Somebody at each of those companies looked at Clark's rise and made a fast, confident call. None of them had years of athlete marketing precedent to draw on the way Nike did. None of them had Nike's design studios, its production pipeline, or its decades of signature shoe experience. And yet speed, in every single case, turned out to matter more than resources. The numbers Nike can't explain. Strip away the speculation, and the numbers alone make Nike's timeline hard to defend. Consider LeBron James, whose rookie signature shoe arrived within 7 months of being drafted, ready for shelves by Christmas of his first professional season, back in 2003.
With the first pick in the 2003 NBA draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select LeBron James.
Nike understood, decades ago, that a generational athlete's commercial window opens immediately and does not stay open forever. Whatever lesson that early success taught the company, it does not appear to have survived inside the organization that handled Clark's case. Then there is the broader portfolio gap. Nike and its Jordan brand currently carry 8 separate men's signature basketball shoes. In the NBA, that number sits at 2, Sabrina Ionescu, and now, finally, Clark. 2 signature shoes for an entire league, from a company that built its global identity on signature basketball footwear. Why would a company with this much infrastructure for supporting individual stars apply so little of it to its women's roster? Sonny Vaccaro, the executive whose work helped bring Michael Jordan to Nike in the 1980s, has been blunt about the situation. According to his own public comments, this ranks among the most significant marketing failures he has witnessed in decades inside the industry. Not because Clark lacked commercial appeal, but because she had it in abundance from the moment she entered the league. Clark was never a gamble the way some rookies are. She was a known commodity, already proven at the collegiate level, already carrying an audience most professional athletes spend years building. There was no risk to manage. There was only a decision to make, and Nike took years longer to make it than the moment required. There is also a harder conversation underneath all of this, one that commentators including ESPN's Dan Wetzel and Jason Whitlock have raised in different ways, pointing to the fact that the NBA's player base is largely black and questioning how Nike prioritizes which athletes get fast-tracked. Nike has not addressed this criticism directly, and it remains an open question, not a settled one. It is worth being precise about what the criticism does and does not claim. Nike has also invested in other black athletes, including a signature deal for Aja Wilson during this same period.
For Aja Wilson, as she's getting her own signature Nike shoe, Nike says the shoe will be called A1.
So the question is narrower than a single sweeping accusation. It is about pacing and prioritization. Whether that reflects bias, inconsistency, or unrelated business factors is something only people inside Nike can answer with certainty. That the question is being asked publicly, by people with real standing in the industry, is itself part of this story. None of these numbers alone prove intent, but together they form a pattern hard to explain as bad luck. A company with a 7-month turnaround for one historic athlete took nearly 4 years for another. A company with 8 signature shoes on the men's side built only 2 on the women's. Vaccaro's argument is not that Clark eventually proved herself worthy of a shoe. It is that she had already proven it before she ever set foot on a Ballon de l'Acier court. So the usual excuse for moving slowly, waiting to see how a rookie performs, simply did not apply here. There was no uncertainty to wait out. There was only a fully formed market that Nike chose not to act on until competitors and critics forced the issue. The mistake Nike can't afford to repeat. Nike's broader business troubles did not happen in isolation, and the Clark situation cannot be separated from them. The company has spent recent years watching its stock price decline alongside its market position, prompting a leadership response under Chief Executive Elliott Hill, who introduced what the company has called a win-now strategy. An effort explicitly built around streamlining decision-making and cutting through the kind of institutional slowness that allowed opportunities like this one to slip. The existence of that strategy is itself a quiet admission. You do not build an entire corporate initiative around fixing indecision unless indecision has become a real and recognized problem. Industry observers have pointed to a deeper pattern behind the delay. A sense that Nike had grown comfortable relying on legacy stars and established product lines rather than aggressively building toward the next generation of its business. Clark's case became the most visible example of that comfort, precisely because her commercial potential was so obvious and so immediate. If a company can sit on an opportunity this clear for this long, what does that say about the dozens of smaller decisions happening across the rest of its business? The ones that never make headlines because no one is watching as closely. The Caitlin one, when it finally arrives on October 1st, will almost certainly sell well. Clark's fan base has shown no signs of losing patience, and the shoe itself, built around new performance technology, the company says reduces drag and improves on-court movement, appears to be a genuine, carefully considered product, rather than a rushed afterthought. But selling well is not the same as succeeding fully. The cultural moment Nike could have captured at the absolute peak of Clark's rookie hype has already passed. What remains is a strong product arriving into a market that has had years to form its opinions, both about Clark and about the company that waited this long to back her. Look closely at the finished product, and it is clear the design itself was never the problem. The shoe carries small personal details throughout, initials worked into the side panels, her jersey number built into the structure, short phrases hidden underfoot that reference her own approach to the game. It will retail at a price point in line with other premium signature sneakers, with smaller sizing options priced for younger fans hoping to wear the same shoe as their favorite player. None of that craftsmanship explains why it took 4 years to reach this point. If anything, it raises the opposite question. If Nike could build something this considered, why did building it take so much longer than it needed to? Whether this becomes a turning point for Nike's broader strategy,
Nike beating on the top and bottom lines, but its sales fell 8%.
Analysts say it's the beginning of a long turnaround for the company.
or simply one corrected mistake inside a much larger pattern of hesitation, depends on what happens next. Win now is a strategy that will be judged by speed, not by intentions. If Nike applies the same urgency to its next generational opportunity that it failed to apply here, the Clark delay may end up remembered as the moment the company finally learned its lesson. If it does not, this will simply be the most visible example in a much longer list. There is a simple test that will tell the rest of this story before any earnings report does. Watch how quickly Nike moves the next time a women's basketball player breaks out the way Clark did, whether it is a rookie this season or someone still playing in college right now.
Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark was named WNBA Rookie of the Year.
A fast signature deal, announced within months rather than years, would suggest the company genuinely absorbed what went wrong here. Another multi-year silence would suggest the opposite, that the lesson was learned in public statements only, and never made it into the actual decision-making room. So that's the story behind the Caitlin one. A shoe that took 4 years longer than it should have to reach store shelves, while brands like Wilson, Gatorade, and Reebok all moved faster. Nike finally got there, but the moment it was really built for had already started slipping away. What do you think? Did Nike wait too long, or did its new Win Now approach show up right when it needed to? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, give it a like and subscribe to the channel, because there's another story about Caitlin Clark's career we think you'll want to hear next.